Hey, how you doing? Justin here, and today we're going to be checking out this really cool rhythm guitar concept. Well, it's kind of like adding lead guitar into your rhythm guitar. It's pioneered by the guys like Mayfield and Jimi Hendrix. It's a really, really cool trick. Been thinking a bit about how to teach it because it's one of those things that changes a lot depending on the style and the speed and the groove, whether it's kind of triplet based or straight. There's lots of different approaches. So in this video, I'm going to explain the concept, what's going on, how it's working, and give you a couple of exercises that you can get going and start practicing it with. And then I'm going to do some extra videos of very specific licks that you might want to try and work into your playing. That's generally speaking the best way to do it, is to learn some stock phrases, work them into your playing one at a time. It's really, really important not to rush this stuff, I think, and have a few things that you can do really well rather than lots of stuff that you can't really do at all. But in this lesson, it's kind of an overview of the whole thing and how it works. I think you'll find it pretty interesting. I should apologize for wearing shorts as well. It's 32 degrees today, and along with all the lights in the studio, it's getting pretty hot. Really good thing that this global warming thing is all a big hoax. Hey, otherwise we might have something to worry about. Anyway, let's start off with a C major chord up on the 8th fret, okay? Regular kind of E-shaped bar chord. If you're doing this lesson, you should be familiar with that chord as a starting point. Now, what we're going to be looking at is using the C major pentatonic notes to create this little phrase. Okay, really, really nice, simple little starting pattern that should hopefully get you understanding what's going on. So we're at the 8th fret. We're going to use our first finger to cover the 8th fret on the thinnest 2 strings. And then we're going to hammer on the 3rd finger into the 10th fret of the 2nd string. And then lift it off. So there'll be 1 and. Now we're going to put 2nd finger on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. 1st finger is going to go down on the 7th fret of the 3rd string. So those 2 notes together. And we're going to use 3rd finger to hammer down on the 9th fret of the 3rd string. Now with all of these things, part of the trick is getting the 3rd finger to hammer down while we're still letting that thinnest string ring out. Same here on this, the string grouping of 2 and 3. Okay, the 3rd finger has to be round enough to be able to hammer down without muting the 2nd string. Now we move that back and we're going to be playing the 5th fret of the 2nd and 3rd strings. Okay, those I just use a bar with my 1st finger. I'm just playing those 2 notes. 3rd finger will hammer down in the 7th fret of the 3rd string and off. Then we just move that entire shape up toward the ceiling 1 string. So we're now playing the middle 2 strings at the 5th fret, and we'll hammer down the 3rd finger into the 7th fret of the 4th string. And exactly the same thing again now on the 4th and 5th strings. And we can either finish on the root note there on the 3rd fret of the 5th string, the note C, or you can kind of do it twice. It depends on what you like for the rhythm. So that whole phrase, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. Okay? If you go over on the website, you'll find a tab of this. There'll be a link in the description of the video. It's definitely easier if you can see the tab of this sort of stuff, for sure. Now, if you do, you can probably do it just by listening. If I play that and the lick. If I play the C major pentatonic, you can hear that that's the notes that are being traced down here. Okay, so that's what's going on. We're just using notes of the major pentatonic, the C major pentatonic. And we're playing a note on the thinnest string, which is a 4th higher than the note that we're doing the little hammer-on lick. So here's the hammer-on. We add a 4th above it, so 4 steps up the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing, and we're just moving it gradually down the scale. Okay, and you can also do it going up. Say exactly the same little phrase. Okay, that's not part of the same sort of phrase, but if you want to add that on, just because it's something that I find I like the sound of on that, I'm just sliding the 3rd finger from the 10th fret to the 12th fret on the 3rd string, and then little fingers going down the 12th fret of the thinnest string. Okay, that's a different trick, something else I'll be exploring in a kind of rhythm guitar, mixing lead guitar into rhythm guitar kind of a series, but that's not specifically to do with this style of phrase. But okay, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3. Or you could just go to the chord if you want there at the end. That makes a really, really nice little thing to practice. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. So you're seeing a way of kind of transversing through the or traversing rather, through the different patterns there to get from this chord shape to this chord shape using those nice little lead lines. Now, you wouldn't normally play it like that with so many of them because it gets a little bit full on there, I think, and you're much more likely to use little parts of it. But it's important, I think, to be able to see, again, this is an overview lesson where I want you to understand the concept. The way I personally see it is I see it in different groups around the chord shape. So this particular one that I've just showed you is from an E-shaped bar chord, because that's the name of this, the shape of this chord, and I'm working backwards from it. Okay, so kind of ending up in G shape or in A shape, depending on where you're at in the cage system knowledge. You might recognize that, but you can also go forward. The first two are the same, but then we get to, it's slightly more difficult, the fingering for this one. That's first finger in the 9th fret of the 3rd string, second finger on the 10th fret of the 4th string, and little finger hammers down on the 12th fret. Yeah, it's a little bit stickier. And then we've got that same first finger's covering the 10th fret on the 4th and 5th string, little finger hammers down on the 12th fret, third finger hammers down on the 12th fret. And then same thing again on the 5th and 6th string. Or depending on how you want to finish the phrase. So I see that as being ahead of the chord, and this other one as being behind that chord shape. Okay, so that's how I think of those two particular ones. Of course, we've got a similar sort of a thing with an A-shaped bar chord grip. So if I just use an F chord here, I would use this. Okay, that's the phrase that I'd see as going behind that one. Okay, so it's, we're on the 8th fret again for the F chord. Okay, the root note, the 5th string, 8th fret. Again, the phrase actually would be exactly the same as it would be for the C to start off with. So 8th fret barring, and then off, the hammer on with the 3rd finger on the 10th fret. But now we've got, it's a bit of an awkward one really. First finger on the 5th fret of the thinnest string, second finger on the 6th fret of the 2nd string. Now I tend to use my 3rd finger. I don't play this one a whole lot, I'll be honest. I find it a little bit awkward under my fingers, but I use either little finger or 3rd finger to do the hammer on. Yeah, 3rd finger. Little finger's going, having a spacco today. And then lift it off. Then first finger moves over to the 5th fret on the 3rd string, second finger on the 6th fret of the 2nd string, and 3rd finger hammers down on the 7th fret. Off. Then we've got that little first finger playing the 5th fret on the middle 2 strings and hammering down the 3rd finger in the 7th fret. And then really, that's kind of the end of the phrase. We'd be back into one of those other shapes. Okay, so that's how I'd move backwards from an A shape. Moving forward, we end up in the same way as that we would have gone backwards from this F. Here. Okay, so there are kind of finite patterns here, and I'd strongly recommend that you start off with the first one, okay, this series. Because if you're on an A-shaped grip, it's really easy to get into it still, and if you're in an E shape, okay, that's a lot easier as a starting point, so I'd recommend that would be the first one that you explore. Then I'd explore the E shape moving forward. And then if you're still keen for more, then you might look at using this one starting on the A shape but moving behind it, okay? So as I mentioned, all of the theory behind this is that we're using only notes from the major pentatonic scale. I've been doing it in a very kind of scale-like manner, just playing up and down, and you wouldn't want to use all of that all the time, okay? It doesn't work, but it's a great thing to practice, and it's a really fun thing to explore. So, as I said, the kind of what I'd like you to do as the first stage of this is to play some of these patterns. Like I said, the tabs over on the website. It's a nice, easy little thing to practice, just up and down. Make sure you're visually cool with it, that your fingers are technically able to do it. You can keep the strings ringing out and all of that sort of stuff. Generally speaking, most of this would be down picks, especially if you keep to this rhythm here. 1, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. If you stick with that, it should be all down picks, okay? So you don't have to worry about anything complicated with the picking part. If you do that as an exercise and start to feel confident with it, you might want to try just mucking around, okay? There's a lot to be said for just exploring these kind of things. It's quite a nice thing to do with a drum groove. If you can program up a drum groove or get one from the internet or a backing track or something that is static on one chord, that can be a really good way to practice it as well. I would recommend that you work on, or use a looper pedal in today. It's another good use of a looper pedal, is to stick yourself some sort of like a bassy kind of a groove and then practice the rhythm over the top. I do recommend practicing it a bit on one chord first of all before you start trying to negotiate moving between different chords. It's a lot easier to kind of get your head around the way the licks relate to the chord shapes, because that's really what you're trying to program in here. It's not just about what it is and then trying to get the notes right. You need to see it relative to the chord shape, so that as the chords are moving quickly, you're able to see how the patterns move around the chord shapes. That's what you want to be doing. You want to see, oh, here's the D, because it's fitting around here, or here, D, because it's based around that shape. And it wouldn't matter if it was an F sharp, okay, because you can see it's visually based around the shape rather than it having to be like specific notes or whatever. You're trying to build a relationship between the chord grip and the shapes that you can make around it. Eventually, you should probably be hearing it and just be, your ears will tell you, oh, this is the sound I want to make, and your fingers will learn how to make those sounds that your ear wants to hear. Okay, that's the kind of the long-term goal, I guess, for this sort of stuff. So hopefully that all makes sense. Go over and check out on the website. Like I said, it's really, really good idea to see visually what's going on. There'll be a little neck diagram showing you all of the notes of the major pentatonic scale. So as you're learning those phrases, you can see how they fit it, amongst the kind of the cage system, if you're familiar with the cage system. If you're not, it's definitely worth exploring a bit about the cage system so you can see how the chords all join together. There's plenty of lessons of that over on the website as well if you're stuck. But get a grounding on that, and then over on the website there'll be links. Again, you'll probably find them on YouTube. It'll be a lot quicker and easier to find them over on the website. They should probably be listed in the right-hand column to this video if you're watching this video over on the website. And I'm going to break down some individual licks and show you the phrasing and talk a bit more about how you might approach the different rhythms, like fitting in a chord grip and then moving into this and then back. I think that's the easiest way to learn that, is by learning specific licks rather than trying to talk about it conceptually, because it really can change depending on the groove. So, if you're on the website, do ask some questions in the comments below if you're registered, because that's what you can do here, and I'll try and get in there and answer them best I can. And I hope you enjoyed this and the licks that are coming up. I'll see you for plenty more very soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.